Yes, the entire known media universe is buzzing about the following amazing radio phenomenon.
It's the LuMaye. It's the LuMaye. It's the LuMaye Show.
It is Tuesday. It is June 5th, 2018. 3. Well, Mueller's back in the news. I'm getting so bored of Robert Mueller. How long has this been going on now? Almost a year and a half. He's going after Manafort. Manafort evidently tampering with witnesses with some type of encrypted communication that was found by the great investigative powers of the special counsel for $17 million in. I don't know what Manafort has to do with Donald Trump, collusion, or obstruction of justice. I'm not even sure what Robert Mueller has to do with prosecuting Manafort. If he is violation of lobbyist laws and laundering money, that's great. But why is Mueller taking the lead on this? Questions, questions, questions. Do we have any answers? 2. Here's another story that there were a lot of questions on, still remain over. We talked a bit about this last week. Las Vegas, the big shooting in Las Vegas, of course, the greatest massacre of human life in history as far as a mass shooting is concerned. And now there's another individual who should have piqued the interest of law enforcement, and evidently they're not too concerned. Maybe they shouldn't be. We'll let you decide as we roll through the latest, and the latest update is intriguing on big league politics on that massacre in Las Vegas. 1. And then, of course, there's Nexium. Nexium spelled with an X, but it's pronounced like the heart, acid reflux medication. This is an amazing story, and I'm always fascinated by how individuals who seemingly are smart, intelligent people who walk and talk and dress themselves, and beyond that are very successful, worth lots of money, have everything you could possibly want in life in regards to material things, but seem so void of the things that really mean something, and that is family, friends, love. I'm not sure what it is they're missing, but whatever it was so desperate that they joined Nexium, this group, which just was under the guise of empowerment, but enslaved all of these supposedly very smart people. New York Times wrote about it. In fact, here's the writer who's going to set this up for us, describing what Nexium is really all about.
Well, Nexium is a group of mostly affluent women, some actresses living in a conventional suburb outside of Albany, just looking like you and me, going to the gym, driving their BMWs, but they believe that they're on a path to enlightenment. And for some of them, enlightenment involved having sex with the leader, Keith Raniere.
How do you do that? No, I don't mean to laugh because this is a terrible story, but how do you convince women that the path of enlightenment is to have sex with you? How do you do that? Now, this wasn't done easily. I mean, this is pretty intense and detailed-oriented. It was a self-improvement group. A lot of folks wanted help with their acting career, others with all kinds of different needs each of us have in our daily lives that, for whatever reason, these individuals felt they had to reach out to somebody like this guy who they called, it was with the asteroid game, Vanguard. And they had different levels. As you went into Nexium, you started here on the lower scale, there were a lot of people who were very praising it, saying it's really, really helped me. Of course, they were always recruiting, and there were different levels within the organization. That's the pyramid scheme kind of a concept here. It is not until you got to the super secret organization that you got a little bit of a taste of in the opening video today, where the women particularly, and there was one for men, but the women were the ones that were trafficking in sex, and who was doing it and why they were doing it. Absolutely fascinating. We'll get into that. But understand, it started off here, but just as every cult, you start here, and it doesn't take long before you're giving them more than you should, and they have complete control of you. The man running the thing was Keith Raniere, who is, I guess, by all accounts, a very smart man. He has an IQ of 240, but this is just another pyramid scheme. Check it out.
Before he founded the strange and secretive group with a name like a Roman numeral, Keith Raniere's first big idea was hawking memberships in an ill-fated network marketing company called Consumers Byline.
His name is Keith Raniere. His idea is called Consumers Byline.
Consumers Byline may help you.
This promotional video for Consumers Byline from the 1990s features the late Eddie Albert of Green Acres fame and a painfully awkward pitchman, 31-year-old Keith Raniere.
Keith, happy to see you again.
Yes, happy to see you too.
It's an amazing idea.
Yes, well, sometimes it even amazes me. But Consumers Byline is wonderful, and it's working.
And it really was a brilliant idea. It was based on the premise of, as a group, collectively, we can buy in bulk and we can save a lot of money.
Well, it sounds like an interesting idea. I actually remember those commercials in the 90s, and he was behind it. Now, who could have guessed that today we're talking about a man who was running a sex cult and it was involved in sex trafficking, which encompassed even Hollywood. Now, one of the past victims describes exactly how Vanguard manipulated them. Check this out.
By that time, Toni Natali was all in. She had left her husband and moved to Albany with her young son to be with Keith. They were together for nearly 6 years. She says in all-night talks, Keith drew out all of her secrets.
Here's the smartest man in the world, willing to help you through your emotional issues. And the reason that you're stuck in this world, and the reason that you can't move on, and the reason you can't grow, is because you haven't learned how to heal that thing inside of you.
I'll help you.
I'm going to help you
make it all better.
I'm going to help you heal sexually. I'm going to help you heal intellectually. I'm going to show you the path.
I know what you're saying. Stop it. I'm thinking the same stuff. I really, oh my God, really? They fell for this stuff? Really? That's all it took? A night of staying up late and talking and finding out your innermost secrets? Are people so vulnerable that you are walking around in life wondering, who am I? What do I need to do? How do I grow? How do I succeed? What do I want out of life? You need someone else to tell you that? There is evidently a great quantity of people who feel that way and need this. In fact, NXIVM grew to over 16,000 such individuals. That's amazing to me. It absolutely is. And what they do is they do, in fact, collect information on you. And in fact, here's a little bit of how they engage in training in their seminars.
Toni saw the early days of Raniere's partnership with Nancy Saltzman, the creation of NXIVM teachings known as rational inquiry, and methods that in court filings she later likened to brainwashing.
What Keith does, he elicits all that information from you. My opinion is that what they do from there is they take that information and they utilize that. Where can I not build you up or break you down?
According to former members, the sessions came to involve practices such as bowing and a special handshake. At NXIVM's Albany headquarters, people inside can be seen wearing sashes. Former members say different colors denote rank. Former coach Margot Joy Leviton says classes begin with a ritual hand clap.
We do something that we would call a huddle. So everyone would put their arms around each other in this big circle.
We are committed to our success.
And then straight into the mission statement.
There are no ultimate victims. Therefore, I will not choose to be a victim.
I would have turned around and walked out the minute that we did this. But yet, this, for whatever reason, like a magnet drew these people in. Was it Napoleon who said a man would die for a medal? It's almost the same kind of mentality here. You got your sash, you had your camaraderie, and they used this information that they collected, the personal information that these individuals are willing to give up. And I guess we all, quite honestly, in today's social media are willing to give up freely without thinking twice about it. But the brilliance of this man was that this information then became a tool for him to break him down. You can call it brainwashing, indoctrinate, whatever you want to call it. That's how and why he used the information, and it was quite successful. People who were inside the cult had this to say.
Margot says anyone unwilling to go along with the rituals
To Vanguard.
Thank you, Vanguard.
would be scorned.
We would just suppress them and be like, oh, they just don't get it. They just don't get it.
I mean, if you step out of line, you get punished. You know, you get a lot of like strong thought control, you know, leveled at you. And you get told.
What does that mean,
It
strong?
means basically like using intellect to try to out-logic you, to basically say, you're the problem. This problem you're bringing us, no, you're the problem. If you question Keith Raniere, the hits the fan.
Like
you
what?
You are prideful. How dare you? Don't you realize you owe everything to him? And in my mind, I'm like, what?
I know. Again, I'm thinking the same thing. What a weak individual to be so easily manipulated. But of course, we're not living that. We haven't been indoctrinated. We haven't been brainwashed. If one is so low, so without self-confidence, whatever that thing that individual is missing, and it means so much to them, and they feel they can find it through this organization or through an individual, is enough of a motivating factor for them to put up with this. But if we're talking about individuals who are just merely being taunted with words and they don't have the strength to leave, that really tells you everything you need to know about the individuals who are victims of NXIVM, because they are all in that class, that boat. Sad that these individuals were so vulnerable, in fact, so vulnerable, as a matter of fact, one was driven to suicide.
And then there's a case mentioned in court filings involving a woman named Kristen Snyder. She went missing in 2003 after walking out of a NXIVM intensive in Alaska. Police believe she paddled a kayak out into the bone-chilling waters of Resurrection Bay and committed suicide. Her friend Hillary, who asked us not to use her last name, reads a note that Kristen left.
I attended a course called Executive Success Programs, aka NXIVM. I was brainwashed and my emotional center of the brain was killed, turned off. Please contact my parents. Sorry. If you find me or this note, I am sorry, life. I didn't know I was already dead.
Kristen Snyder's body was never found.
Yeah, and that's what that gentleman prior to that, this clip was trying to tell you, that the way they punish people through their words and actions, by making them the issue, that you're the problem. In this case, evidently, it appears this person finally said, well, I guess I am, that I'm already dead, and then committed suicide. But there's lots more to NXIVM. As I mentioned earlier, there were different levels. As you progressed and were pleased with the results, I guess, you have to understand, like with any other cult, they separate you from reality. All your other friends, your family members become individuals you no longer really hang with. You have only the group, the mind thought. We call it in a bubble out here in the real world, and we have that. We all have that. You tend to watch programs that reinforce your beliefs, right? But you still have external stimuli coming from all different sorts of people and media, which keeps you somewhat balanced. But when you're in a cult, that all goes away, and you are now inside a bubble where they have total control of you. And when I mean total control, and this is the thing that is, it just blows me away that people would do this, is that as you progress, for instance, you're in the initial get-together with your sash and your hand clap, but if you if you really want to become enlightened, you can move up to the university level, which is something like $5,000 a month. There's a secret society. It's a Latin term, and I forget exactly how it is. Dominique, it empowers God. The power God holds over women is basically the loose translation of it. They just call it DAS. And this is a group where you have the actresses, Allison Mack, and others who are part of this group. And in order to get into the group, you don't pay money, but you give collateral. Collateral is something you will offer up to the vanguard, I guess, in order to prove your worth, that you have such trust, that you are so enlightened, that you are willing to trust him with this information. And it is the deepest, darkest secret that you could possibly have, is what he wants. Maybe it's yourself, maybe it's on your parents, whatever it is, that secret, if it were to get out, would completely destroy you, your relationship with your family, whatever. That's the power. That's the control that he had over these women who were willing to do it. And there were lots of women who did it. Sarah Edmondson talks about the secret sorority.
After all their years together in NXIVM, Sarah says Lauren approached her about a new and mysterious opportunity.
Life-changing, but top secret.
But Edmondson claims Lauren Saltzman demanded highly compromising collateral first. In response, she says she and some others ended up providing nude photos of themselves.
Instantly, all my alarm bells are going
Absolutely.
off. So why did you do it?
I did it because I trusted her.
Only then did she gain entry.
And the first step is making a vow of obedience to her as me being a slave and her being my master. Again,
Slave? She used the word slave?
She used the word slave.
Did you object?
Of course, yeah, and objected every stage of the way. And she said, it's a metaphor. It's like guru-disciple.
All of this, she says, led up to the night when she and 4 women submitted one by one to being branded by this woman, she says, Dr. Danielle Roberts.
And then the woman on the table screamed out in pain, you know, twisted and turned and yelled, and the woman I was with holding her legs down, we looked at each other and we just wept.
Why didn't you let go and run out of there even naked?
It didn't seem like a choice at the time.
I don't know, there ought to be a movie about this. Somewhere somebody ought to sit down and explain how people, smart people like that, are able to find themselves in that position and still actually go through with it. She was actually branded. Now, Ranieri's statement on the sorority went like this.
Ranieri did not respond to our requests for an interview, but in a letter posted on the group's website, Ranieri says there is no merit to the allegations that we are abusing, coercing, or harming individuals. Ranieri says that secret sorority is not part of NXIVM, and I'm not associated with the group. The letter also says our experts say members of the sorority are thriving, healthy, happy, better off, and haven't been coerced.
Well, of course that isn't true, obviously. They've been coerced. They were foolish, naive to hand over information they didn't want anyone else to know. The collateral, in order to join this group and become enlightened, they were expecting something, and then, of course, they got something much different. Allison Mack, of course, is an actress, was on Smallville. Her career wasn't doing real well since then, and that is one of the reasons she joined NXIVM to begin with, in order to recapture her career. She had a lot of issues, and she raved about NXIVM and the benefits that she received. So she was constantly recruiting other celebrities into NXIVM. It's the same old story. Well, she moved up the ladder to where she was the slave of Ranieri. He was the master, of course, and it was her job in order to find women who would become part of this sexual activity within this higher level cult sorority, or the DOS is what they called it, and she did just that. In fact, here's a little piece on Allison Mack's role.
According to court documents, Mack lured unsuspecting women into a secret sisterhood connected to a self-improvement organization known as NXIVM. But prosecutors say it was really a sex trafficking group, and Mack's job was to find women to become sex slaves for its alleged leader, Keith Raniere.
Anything to say to the alleged victims?
Mack and her lawyers did not comment as she left court. She was released on $5 million bond after pleading not guilty to charges of sex trafficking conspiracy, and conspiracy to commit forced labor.
Yeah, and she's recently, she came out and took the hit for the branding. Said it was my idea, I thought it would be cool. But again, you have to understand, and there are those who've been following this very, very closely, who believe that in that case, she may or may not have come up with the idea. She's certainly covering for the Vanguard, and again, you have to understand, if you have all of this material on an individual, and I don't know what it is, and I'm not suggesting that she's an innocent player here, because she willingly, enthusiastically went out and recruited individuals who ultimately would end up in a situation where they were being branded and then forced to have sex. And that's Allison Mack. So you have this group, and it all starts, well, again, with, I guess, and he doesn't strike me as being the kind of guy like, whoa, what a personality, right? Like to hang out with him, but for whatever reason, he had the impact and influence, and he is a smart dude, to manipulate a lot of people. And understand this, and I think this is one of the reasons you're not getting a lot of news on it yet. you had a lot of wealthy people involved. You had the former U.S. Surgeon General, the president's son, of the president of Mexico's son. You had a lot of wealthy, big-name people. If you read the names, you go, oh, those well-established, old money kind of people involved in this. So celebrities, power, and wealth. And this is all going on. And it was just recently, of course, where Raniere was arrested along with Allison Mack, and these charges were brought up. It's an incredible story, and there's much, much more to it. In fact, the New York Times did a pretty interesting piece on it. It's very long, where they actually, one of the few times that Raniere allowed the media in to actually talk about and report on NXIVM. But she had an opportunity, the reporter did, to talk to an awful lot of people, and it's quite fascinating what they were willing to give up as they search for some sort of enlightenment. Now we're going to take a pause here because we're going to tie into something else. Whether it's related to NXIVM or not, I'll let you determine that for yourself. But it does tie in this way, that when you have individuals who have a lot of money and a lot of wealth, as you know, the justice system in America, it's a bit of a two-tiered one. If you got the cash and the influence, you may not go to jail, Hillary Clinton, or someone like me doing the same thing. Well, spend a lifetime in jail, right? This is just, this is evil. Evil. We'll talk about it when we come back. Evil.
Yes, the entire known media universe is buzzing about the following amazing radio phenomenon.
It's the Bill LuMaye. It's the Bill LuMaye. It's the Bill LuMaye Show.
Well, recent legislation has opened up the records, all of our records, public records, all across the country, to you. You can search them at will, as long as you like, and you will be amazed at what you find. Now, the purpose for this is what? Well, you could search yourself, of course, and find out what the internet knows about you, and I think you'll be blown away when you do that. Maybe you have some high school buddy or friend that you'd like to connect with, family members that you've lost touch of, or maybe you're involved in some other things like hiring somebody for business, you got a bad feeling, or going through a divorce. My point is, TruthFinder is the best of all search engines out there. They're constantly expanding into the millions upon millions of records that are released on a daily basis. They will provide you with the greatest detailed, most accurate background check on anybody. And the beauty of this, with TruthFinder, once you join, you have unlimited searches. Search away, go crazy. Try it yourself, like right now. Well, maybe after the show. Try it by going to the website, search yourself. I think you'll be blown away by what you find that everybody else knows about you that maybe you've already forgotten. BigLeaguePolitics.com/TruthFinder. BigLeaguePolitics.com/TruthFinder.
Here at this abandoned private property, the group Veterans on Patrol have been here since Wednesday. They say this branch is here with an apparatus, what looks like a child restraint. Then coming this way, down here, you can see shaving cream, shampoo, and some roach killer. Then even further a little beyond here, just to my left, what looks like a child's crib.
Under all of that wood, pillows and clothes, and it's crazy to believe this is going on in our backyard. Crazy.
Yeah, it's very, very creepy. It's very, very evil. I don't know what it is, to be honest with you. I don't know. And the police say it's nothing. It's just a homeless camp. That's all it is. But you have this veterans group, that uncovered the bunker, and that's really what it is. It's actually a septic tank turned upside down, and it has a slant to it where you could put a child, and the child can't crawl out of it. All right? There's just a lot of things that don't add up here. Now, the veterans group, standing guard over it, they've tried to pull evidence out of it, and they've gone to the police on many, many occasions and said, "You've got to see this, because I think this is a site where they've held children, and they have been doing just terrible, terrible things to them." And the police, well...
A group called Veterans on Patrol says this remote area off of I-19 in Valencia is a child sex trafficking camp.
I don't understand how this was underneath our nose, yet right in front of our face, completely.
But Tucson police say absolutely not. TPD says investigators have been here multiple times with detectives and officers, and the department says it appears to be nothing more than an abandoned camp. They say they appreciate the public's awareness and the calls to their office, but they investigate it, and there does not appear to be any signs of human or sex trafficking. They also say they are continuing to investigate.
All right, fair enough. Police department, I would think, would be all over that if they suspected even for one moment that there was any possibility that children were taken there to be used for sex and of course, imprisoned. But the veterans group disagrees with the police, is what they say.
Anybody that walks through that site will clearly know that that's sex trafficking. That's children and women being abused. They have not been out here to collect any evidence. All the evidence that's been collected has been collected by us, and we have them in our possession.
We asked to see the evidence. We were told it's being stored in a private area. That evidence has not been turned over to police. Tucson police say officers have been patrolling the area, and it's putting great strain on the department's resources.
All right, I'd like to see some evidence. I'd like to see this thing, wouldn't you? I could easily see, by looking at the pictures we've seen thus far, that could easily be a homeless shelter encampment. So, where is this tunnel? What does it look like? Let's go underground.
Prison cell. This is a prison cell. Only kids are being held down here, and I can tell you exactly how. We'll come in. I remember this whole thing they built over to conceal this. And there's a plastic tube chamber in here where the kids are going in and out. We'll shine my light. You see a piece of wood, and it looks like that the wood gets slid down there, and the kids are crawling up if you look down in there when they let them out.
Yeah.
But there's different toys down there, little food bags. You can actually stick it in pretty. And then that board's used to slide them up. Yeah. The only way, because they're not going to reach down in there and grab them, so I guess they're having them slide up. But this is all the way down there. A child's not going to be able to get out of here, small child. And you're not going to hear them scream. Yeah. They're enclosed. You're not going to see them from the sky. Our drone didn't pick this up. It just picked up a dirty tar.
Yeah, I can tell you, having been to the border in that area, that you have the rape trees, which are very obvious and apparent. They had Barbie dolls, hair dryers, they had outside toilets, restraints, and this area, which appears to be a cell-like area for kids. I'm not telling you it is, and I'm not telling you it's not. At the same time, interestingly, that the owners of the property also happen to have a connection with NXIVM as the sisters belonging to the family that owns that property as well. I'm not suggesting that the two are connected. I'm just suggesting that the police seem to be hesitant to move hard on this case. Maybe it is what they say it is. Maybe the veterans aren't correct. It seems as though you would want to see a little more investigation done by the police department. Here are some pictures for you, just so that you understand. You have the toys. Now, the toys could well be from kids who were staying there with mom and dad who were homeless. You have underwear, children's underwear that they found on site. And you also have the restraints on the tree. I'm telling you, I don't know if what we're looking at is what it is. I just know that evil exists in this world, and there is more than a probable reason to open some sort of investigation, and it doesn't appear as though that's happening. I don't know why. I don't know why. Could it be the money? Could it be the wealth? Could it be that the police are just simply not interested because they believe what they believe? In any case, the veterans group is out there, and they're not going anywhere, and they're continuing to collect information, and at some point, somebody's going to have to determine whether or not that was a site where children were taken, where despicable things took place. I got a sick stomach right now. I truly, truly do. Human beings that can do that to a child deserve never to see the light of day. But that's me. We'll see. When we come back, Las Vegas has some updates. The shooter, was there more than one shooter? Was it a terrorist attack? We went through this last week. Well, there's another individual of interest that the police talked to briefly, but they have dismissed. But some new information from Big League Politics have come to light, and we'll share it with you when we come back.
Yes, the entire known media universe is buzzing about the following amazing radio phenomenon.
It's the Bill LuMaye. It's the Bill LuMaye. It's the Bill LuMaye Show.
You have investments? Well, I hope you do. I hope you do. You know, most Americans don't, which is really, really sad, or at least not enough. One thing you should be invested in, even at a very early age, is precious metals. I didn't know anything about precious metals. Unfortunately for me and for you, Birch Gold does. And I mean, they are the very best of the best. In fact, you can get a free, underline it, bold it, exclamation mark, 16-page booklet with information, insider information about precious metals. If you have a 401k or an IRA, they can roll that over into a precious metal IRA. There's no penalty, no tax penalties whatsoever. And really, when you think about it, and I'm sure you have the stock market goes up, it goes down, you have the politicians, you have countries who do things, all of it impacts the value of your investment. With gold or precious metal, you have it in hand and it never loses your value, and that secures your investment. So it's smart, it really is. And Birch Gold is the best because they sell it, but they do more than that. They service you, they educate you. So start right now by going to the website, getting the free 16-page booklet. No one's going to call you, no obligation, it's absolutely free. It is bigleaguepolitics.com/Birch Gold. bigleaguepolitics.com/Birch Gold.
A major step forward in the investigation this morning as the shooter's girlfriend arrived in Los Angeles overnight on a flight from the Philippines. Mary Lou Danley was Stephen Haddock's girlfriend for at least 3 years, with him up until just 2 weeks before the shooting.
She had to know that he had some kind of mental health issue, some type of stress in his life. She had to know that that was going on.
And authorities now label her as central to the investigation, after first dismissing the possibility she played any role.
Currently, she's a person of interest.
Especially after the discovery by police of so many weapons, so much ammunition, and explosives at the home they shared in Mesquite, Nevada.
How could she not know what was going on in her own house with these weapons? She had to know something, at the very least question him as to where are these weapons coming from? Why do you have all these weapons?
Danley's sisters spoke to Australian TV station with their faces blurred. They say she had no idea of Paddock's plans.
He sent her away so that he can plan what he's planning without interruptions. In that sense, I thank him for sparing my sister's life, but that won't be to compensate 59 people's life.
I didn't even know that she's going to the Philippines until Steve said, "Oh, Mary Lou, I found you a cheap ticket to the Philippines."
Yeah, he did find cheap tickets, and as you recall, in our report, I think it was Friday, that he also sent her a lot of money to buy a house there. This was a guy, the shooter, Paddock, that right now the FBI and the Las Vegas Police Department believe was the sole shooter, despite a lot of mounting evidence that suggests possibly not. Of course, ISIS taking credit for the attack as well, which they have, I guess, decided that there's nothing to it. Now, the wife had a Facebook page, and on her Facebook page, she had contributors, friends of hers, that were actually tied to ISIS. You saw a lot of folks, a lot of postings on the Facebook page that basically showed beheadings of ISIS. So they were sympathizers. Also, there was a log on page 26. The following document was taken at 11:02 p.m. at the night of the shooting that in the unit, the control room, in the unit in which Paddock was staying, there was 3 females in the room. Those 3 females, checkout times were, well, check-in times were at least right on the money, and of course they've been redacted, so we don't know who these people are. But then again, this just contradicts what you heard the police in their press conference on Friday say, that he acted alone. They were there. Kind of odd, considering he was supposedly firing a lot of bullets out of that window, right? And then you had the security guy, and there's a problem there, and the timeline and all of that. And interestingly enough, the wife deleted her Facebook page before he was named as the killer. Isn't that odd? Just odd. So I don't know. Are these all just little coincidences? Are they? There's more on the 3 women. They checked in on the 25th, of course, initially, and checked out on the 2nd initially. The police department said that Paddock checked in on the 28th, which was a pretty big discrepancy. And despite the fingerprints on the ammunition, his wife's fingerprints on the ammunition, they questioned the wife and said, you know, hey, it doesn't seem to be an issue here. Well, she just loaded the gun to help her husband out. You know, it's hard to load a gun. There's just a lot here that remain a lot of questions. That's all, just simply a lot of questions. I'm not saying something else happened. I'm just saying there are a lot of questions here. Another individual that we has shown to be a person of interest, or should be, and this is something Big League Politics has exclusively on our website, is a gentleman who is from Australia, of all places. Again, I want you to keep in mind that the terrorist aspect of this particular shooting, for whatever reason, there's been a quick denial within 24 hours. I mean, the police said, no, there's no way, no way. Despite the fact that ISIS has come forward, has said, we in fact did do this, that Paddock was a disciple and converted 6 months ago and did do this. In fact, they used their own organization, which they never do, in order to announce this, and that particular organization has never taken credit for something that ISIS has not been involved in. This man is called Brian Hodge. And he has, at this point, no relationship that I'm aware of with Paddock, the shooter, but he's a bit of a man of mystery in that he was at the hotel during the massacre. And interesting, he talks about the shooting beginning, and he runs out of the hotel, because that's what you would do. You just run out of the hotel. People are being killed outside. He runs out of the hotel and hides outside, and he hid in the bushes for 3 hours. And there's a part of the series that Big League Politics is doing is taking a look at this particular guy, Brian Hodge. He is someone who has met with, according to Big League Politics, after talking to a bunch of intel, and I'm not going to get into all the boring specifics of it, but needless to say, they were able to track Mr. Hodge shortly after the shooting to an individual in New Mexico, I believe it was, who was a Pakistani, a Turkish guy actually, and this Turkish guy comes from part of the country, part of the world that has a lot of terrorists, but he himself is on the terrorist watch list with the FBI. Isn't that something? It's got to be a coincidence, though. Got to be a coincidence. Now, Hodge has done several interviews with the Australian radio and television hours after the attack, and he said, I hid in the bushes, I have nothing to do with it. But again, here is something where you have an individual who does something unusual. When somebody does something unusual, rather than run away from where people are getting shot, but runs rather outside and hides, and then meets with somebody who has this kind of a background, you'd think you'd want to question him a little bit. Here's a Facebook page. I request to anyone on my feed, gay, straight, bi, curious, black, white, religious, human, when you pick up your marriage equality ballot paper in Australia over the next few days and weeks. Imagine that instead of it being relatively anonymous, placing it into a postbox and simply walking away. Imagine that you have to hand that same ballot paper to someone that you know who is gay/lesbian. Your cousin, your friend, your work colleague, your doctor, your son, your daughter, another human being. See more. So they suggest that possibly there's some homophobic relationship reason behind this as well. Here's the bottom line, folks. The shooting in Las Vegas has taken now, the 8-month anniversary was last week. And in that time, we've had a lot of questions. We've had another press conference. We've had timelines change. We've had individuals who have been investigating this from day one, and they are the main reason that more and more information, like big league politics as well, is starting to come out about this particular shooting. It was the largest in American history. You do have a terrorist organization who's claiming responsibility for it. I don't know why the Sheriff's Department has decided so quickly. It's really quite unusual they decide that with less than 24 hours that it had nothing to do with terrorism, and why, for whatever reason, they seem to be rather incompetent about their investigation, or there's something else going on, or dare I say that the reporters are actually doing their job. One in particular is doing a fantastic job. And Big League Politics will continue to have updates on this particular series because Brian Hodges has now become a person of interest. We'll see what happens. We'll go from there. I know you have something from Melbourne too, don't we? Something that, what was the claim there, Spencer? I'm sorry. It's one of our comrades from Las Vegas branch has made these fascist Trump-supporting dogs pay. That's and that's what supposedly he was the shooter in all of this, or participated in it, and he was an anti-Trump guy. But this is Antifa. Is this Antifa fascist organization? Well, then you got the liberal side who called up and said, "Hey, there's nothing to it." We called the guy in Melbourne. The guy in Melbourne, who happens to be an anti-fascist Antifa type, who also hates Donald Trump, said, no, he says, what is it, whatever happened to the old Melbourne benefit, says, when I reckon it was a hoax, and I should probably know. And they asked, well, how do you know? And this is from Big Leagues, I believe, who asked the question for no reason. I live in Melbourne. I've been participating in anti-fascist activism for years. I know other anti-fascists in Melbourne. I read it like other fake pages. It was a garbage fire. It appeared along with a slew of other such pages. In other words, bottom line, I am one of those anti-fascist, hate Trump, Antifa types. And we would never do anything like that. And so Snopes said, okay, that's good enough for us. Fortunately for us, it's not good enough for Big League Politics. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Mr. Mueller's investigation and Paul Manafort, who might be going to jail, of all things. Manafort being accused of breaking some laws, including money laundering and not filing the proper paperwork when it comes to being a lobbyist. Not sure what this has to do with Donald Trump or collusion or anything else, but it's in the news today. Maybe we can figure this out. Stick around.
Yes, the entire known media universe is buzzing about the following amazing radio phenomenon.
It's the Bill LuMaye. It's the Bill LuMaye. It's the Bill LuMaye Show.
Oh, can't have this. Paul Manafort attempting to intimidate witnesses in the great Robert Mueller collusion investigation. $17 million year and a half later. So what is this all about? Manafort? I guess he's accused of doing some things, right? None of them have anything to do with Donald Trump or Russian collusion. So why is Mueller even involved? Here's the breakdown for you.
Big way, Robert Mueller is looking to put Paul Manafort in jail, suggesting that he has been trying to influence witnesses while out on conditional release. There was a court filing yesterday in which Mueller argued, quote, there is probable cause to believe that Manafort has violated the law, attempting to tamper with potential witnesses while on pretrial release, and accordingly has violated the conditions of his release. Mueller telling the court that Manafort has been seeking to contact former business associates from a public relations firm that was acting as an intermediary for a group called the Habsburg Group, who were lobbying on behalf of Ukraine. Mueller alleges that Manafort has been trying to contact two individuals on their cell phones and by encrypted text messaging, even sending them news articles, all, quote, in an effort to secure materially false testimony. According to court documents, the two individuals tried to avoid Manafort's communications, believing that he was attempting to suborn perjury. Mueller wants to put Manafort in jail and take away his means of communication. Now, all of this could be just another attempt by Mueller to put more pressure on Manafort to flip on the president. We've got no response from Manafort just yet.
You think? You think? What's he originally charged with? I guess here's allegations of money laundering and failing to register as a foreign agent to bank and tax fraud. They're not good things. I certainly won't want to be indicted on those kinds of things, but nonetheless, Mueller seems to be kind of stepping it up just a tad here. Is it to turn the screws to Manafort? Gosh, I don't know. But again, it's Manafort. Got nothing to do with Trump. Got nothing to do with collusion. Got nothing to do with obstruction of justice or anything he happens to be investigating. Why didn't he turn this over to whatever district DA he did? It did it with others who were not directly engaged in the investigation on collusion and obstruction. So maybe so. Well, what does Newt Gingrich think of all of this?
Well, look, if it's true, it's a big deal. And I think it's an example of what happens in these kind of cases, where you start way over here with Russia, then you go to a 2005 tax problem, then you go to not, trying to be clever when you're dealing with the FBI, which is always a bad idea. Mm-hmm. And then what you get in trouble over here with no regard for how it started. I mean, people tend to forget this was originally about Russia. Mm-hmm. And we have zero evidence that Donald J. Trump in any way colluded with Russia, which is what this is all about.
But we don't know because
yeah, no, you do know. Yeah, we do know. We do know. As her voice trails off into Never Never Land. Yes, we do. We've leaked just about everything that can be leaked from the investigation, and you most certainly would know if there was even a morsel of evidence suggesting Donald Trump acted improper in any way in any of this. And of course, Newt Gingrich, who is brilliant, is absolutely right. You start with collusion, you end up in 2005, now you get a tax problem, and then you make some misstatements and you try to outwit the FBI, which you're not going to do, and you end up in Paul Manafort's position. Here's the other thing you can take away from this as well. There's one of two things happening here. Number one, either Mueller is really, really desperate, and which is why he wants to put Manafort in jail and turn the screws and expecting to get something, I don't know what, out of Manafort that he hasn't already gotten. Or, and I suspect this is probably more true, this is about keeping this investigation rolling. For those who suggested that it might be over by Labor Day, and I think Rudy Giuliani suggested that, I hope he's right, but I just can't see that happening. You have to understand what the outcome here, what the goal of all of this is. The goal is to get rid of Donald Trump, to overturn the legal election of the presidency of the United States by those individuals who stand to lose big. First of all, the Democratic Party, the establishment Republicans, and the deep state. All of those individuals want him gone. I call it a coup. I guess there's a politer way of stating it, but that's the end game. So why would you give up now? You most certainly cannot. You will keep it on, the pressure will be there, and how long it will last, I don't know. As far as Manafort is concerned, if he's guilty of money laundering, he's guilty. He should pay a price. If he tried to tamper with witnesses, he should pay a price. I don't have a problem with that. But again, what the hell does this have to do with Donald Trump and Russian collusion? I would say to you, zip, zero, nada. Once again, showing how diverse I really am as a host. When we come back, I love Donald Trump. When we come back, the Philadelphia Eagles are supposed to come to Washington, D.C. today. We're going to have a big celebration, And it didn't happen. It didn't happen, and the president called it off. Oh, you probably already know the story. I kind of like it. You might not. Stick around.
Yes, the entire known media universe is buzzing about the following amazing radio phenomenon.
It's the Bill LuMaye. It's the Bill LuMaye. It's the Bill LuMaye Show.
Well, today was supposed to be the day that the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl team came to the White House and got the honorary way to go. And of course, as you know, the Philadelphia Eagles had their protest moments throughout the season, and you have a lot of people on the Eagle team who don't particularly care for Donald Trump. So less than half of the Eagle team was expected to actually show up at the White House. So Donald Trump decided to say something about it and do something. He canceled the event. Here's what he had to say. Check this out. They disagree with their president because he insists that they proudly stand for the national anthem. Hand on heart, in honor of the great men and women of our military and the people of our country. And so he said, nah, don't bother coming. Don't bother coming. And of course, some people got a little upset with that. Of course, a lot of the players, which are those individuals who did protest throughout the season, didn't particularly care for it. They don't like being made an example of. ESPN, their commentary is typical. Right now, they are accusing Donald Trump of having the NFL in the palm of his hands. He can do whatever he wants. Playing him like a fiddle. And maybe he is. Maybe he is. I think he is too. I think he is too. But you see, this is something that bothers a great majority of Americans, and the NFL has realized this as well, and the NBA has. I mean, they certainly have very strict rules. You cannot disrespect anything, do anything disrespectful during the national anthem because it means something to people in a big way. You may not agree with that, but so be it. You have to understand that. And the thing about that, which is so funny, they're customers. Can you imagine? Could you imagine going out and protesting against your customers at your place of employment? In any case, he disinvited the whole team. What? Oh, I know, you're yelling at the TV. You're saying, well, LuMaye, they didn't kneel. All season long, they didn't kneel. I saw news article after news article. They didn't kneel. The entire Eagle team never once, not one time. Wait, is that Bill Clinton? Not one time did they kneel. Well, you're right about that. But they did protest. Remember this picture? Is that hand over the heart? Not kneeling. Seems to be a kind of a protest during the national. Oh, here's another one. Oh, very respectful. Very respectful. Look at the guy in the back, though. He's got his hand on his heart. Maybe they're waving at somebody in the stands. What do you think? Any more? Do we have any more? Oh, look at the ref. He seems to be showing it now, and not very respectful. Not very respectful at all. So Donald Trump preemptively said, "Screw it. You don't want to come? You don't like me, you don't like the national anthem, you don't want to show respect, the heck with you. Now you can say that's an unfair narrative, but I don't know, I just showed you a bunch of pictures of the Eagles team disrespecting the national anthem and the flag. They don't see it that way, but a lot of people do, and it's their customers. So Donald Trump said, you know what we're going to have? We're not going to celebrate a Super Bowl team. We are going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate America. And they did. Yes, they did. Now, do we have video on this, or is this just B-roll? Look at that. Hand over the heart. That is awesome. You got people out there, you got the Marine Band, I'm pretty certain they played the national anthem, and everybody had a grand old time. And the people who believe what they believe, based on the fairy tales that they've been told by activists and prior presidents, they will believe it. I now know that it's very easy, after today's show, after we've spent a lot of time on NXIVM, how gullible and how foolish people can be and how easily duped they can be. And that's a shame. So our goal is to educate. Information is power. Share this with everyone you know, your friend, your neighbor, your family member, your colleague at work. And then come back here tomorrow, because we're going to be back here. It's over the hump day already, 3 o'clock. Have a great Tuesday.
Yes, the entire known media universe is buzzing about the following amazing radio phenomenon.
It's the LuMaye. It's the LuMaye. It's the LuMaye Show.